I see a lot of participants joining, so let's give a minute and then we'll start. Yeah, and while already we have a good number of people joining, thank you so much for coming and joining us today on the Validated Learning Management in Life Sciences, the webinar, which is organized by the Yes Technologies, and we have the experts also on the call. So in the next minute or so, we'll start. Yeah. All right, let's see more number joining in, please. And it's really great to see everyone. Well, anyways, I'm going to start. I just left a small chat message before we start. So, yeah, well, anyways, very good afternoon, one and all the US members there who have joined us today. My name is Sai. I head the learning as well as I take care of the pre-sales, and I'm a moderator today for this particular validated learning management life sciences. I was into the learning and development almost about 20 years, and the HR fraternity of it. That's my introduction in a crisp. I hope I'm audible. Team Raj and other members can confirm, and the chat members can actually give me a thumbs up sign. I'm sure we can use the interactions and the chat boxes to make it much more interactive. And the more interaction, the more the learning, and the more the learning, we can validate ourselves on the LMS part. So I recommend every member to just hit a thumbs up, or if you're able to hear me from the chat messages, you can just let me know. You can just ping in the chat if my voice is clear and if I'm audible. Yeah. Oh, great. Anisa Hamid. Okay, thanks a lot for confirming, and the few folks who are just putting it up there. Please use the chat box and let's make it interactive. Let's take the next 1 hour's time, the most valuable for our compliance of this webinar also, while we validate for the compliance of the auditors. So coming back here, my name is Sai, and today we're going to talk about how we validate our LMS in the life sciences industry, and that's a very specific webinar we are bringing in. This is not a usual webinar. You can see it all the time because the regulatory authorities actually look for what in your LMS, what we think about LMS as a learning into the organization, and what are the areas of compliance that we need to look at it, and many risk-based validations that we have to understand, because end of the day, we don't want any non-compliance for this. So let me not take it further, but I just want to ask a few questions to the audience. Let me see if you're able to answer these questions for me. Quickly, I'll just put a chat, abbreviative form. You need to give the full form of it, okay? If you're part of this, I just have, please look at the chat and just let me know. A small IQ test for you. So I'm just putting a small letter on the in the chat box. You can just give the full form of it quickly. Let me see who's going to give the first. I've just given LMS. I'm sure everybody knows it, but yeah, I've just given it just as the starting of it. I recommend the members to give us the quick answers in the chat box, please, before I start and give the interaction. Yes, perfect. Okay, the next one is also related to something, LMS, but I'm sure you know this, IQ. IQ has been given. Can you just check immediately and let me know what is IQ according to you as per this topic we are dealing with? Let me see. Wow, that's fantastic. I think some experts are already there in this call. I can get it. Okay, the next one is OQ. And then I don't want to really delay it because I see some experts already addressing there. And then comes the next is the PQ, OQ and the PQ. Someone can just give it, answer for this also. Let me see quickly what does that talks about, because these are related to our webinar, and I'm sure it's like it will help us. Fantastic. I really like that, Mike. Michelle, I think this is very fastest, and the last I just kept it as FDA before I introduce the speaker. So I'm sure this is very well known for you. I'll make it tough in between. I'll just keep some, chat, messages. I'm sure, you're going to come back and just, get this particular acquaintance of some words and something. If anybody is not knowing, they will know it. And I'm sure most of us, are very, very well knowing about all these things. So, well, thanks a lot. I can see some of the fastest first over there. Let me just move on. Raj, could you please put it up to the next slide, please? So let me take this privilege about our speaker. Definitely, when we're talking about such a big thing about the compliance and the audit compliance of the FDAs and other things, as per the U.S. regulatory authorities, we have the well-known speaker in our yes technologies, and he is Raj Jogam. So I request everybody to welcome along with me Raj Jogam. Raj Jogam, welcome to the show webinar. We're going to make it much more conversational discussion on each of this, and Raj Jugam has about 20 plus years of technology experience, 14 years of success factors experience, completely living in the SF success factors, and also having the 50 plus, SF projects that he has delivered. That's really a great number to really have that experience. We draw from this particular webinar, and also 20 plus LMS implementations that he has done it. So with that said, 8 plus validated LMS deployments, which are exclusive to this webinar, we're going to deep down into a lot of questioning around it. And Raj is today with us for this particular focus areas of validated learning part of it, along with the strategy and architecture, global deployments, integrations, and the compliance transformations. So Raj, welcome to the show.
Glad to be here, Sai. Thanks everyone for joining the call, joining
Yes,
this webinar.
thanks, Raj, for being here. Along with me, my team also, we have Suresh here. But yeah, just in case anywhere, any questions, please do put it up in the chat box or the Q&A. I'm going to pick it up with the Raj. But Raj, just to start with this particular discussion, instead of making it a one-sided presentation, I want it to be most interactive session. So maybe I have a few questions which I got pre-validated with some of the audience who are joining this particular session. So I'll just take it up from few of the audience who have been asking me these questions. So what is the biggest misconception according to you in the industry or by the companies about the validation of this LMS or validated LMS part of the story? Could you please give some light on that?
Absolutely. So thanks again for inviting me to this webinar, Sai. So just a quick 30-second background about me. Sai already introduced me. Have been on HR space for 20 years now. Have done quite a bit of LMS deployments. Have been with Moderna, Biogen, a lot of big pharma companies have worked for them, have deployed learning as well as their validation framework and their validated systems as well. So one of the biggest misconceptions that I've seen when it comes to validation is a lot of organizations. There are two types of misconceptions that I've seen when it comes to validation. Some organizations think that validations is a one and done kind of a thing. You validate the system as part of your deployment learning management system, and validation is no more a priority as you go down the line, as you maintain the system as it is business as usual. And there are other organizations who take the validation to a very extreme level, such that they do not deploy business value. They may validate so much, and their validation process is so intense that even to deploy a minor change, they go through that intensive change control process, intensive approval process, extensive regression process, and all that stuff, making delivering any value to the business a tough thing, right? So I've seen two extremes of it, where some organizations do not validate as much as they need to do. Some organizations take it to a very extreme level that they do not deliver business value. So having that happy medium while always being able to be compliant, that is where I've seen a lot of organizations struggling. What is the amount of validation that is needed to ensure that I'm compliant with with my requirements, right? So having that kind of understanding of how much validation is needed for your system to be maintained, to be validated, to be audited, that coming to that understanding is one of the biggest challenges that I've seen in the organizations.
Considering life sciences industry, can you just tell us, because it's mandatory is what we are trying to tell, and it is important, and there's a lot of effort goes by each organization to keep themselves compliant to this. But in terms of life sciences, how sensitive it is and what
So
penalties it may attract or something like that.
yeah, so validation is obviously a very important aspect of learning management system, right? What does a validation mean? End of the day, validation is nothing but the system is behaving as it should be behaving, right? So there are inputs and there are outputs. So you want the system to behave in a certain way. You have your user requirements. Is the system behaving as it should be behaving, right? And why is it very specifically and very important for a life sciences organization, right? So basically, this is required because of FDA regulations and audits that FDA does, or various authorities that do the audits to ensure that the systems are validated. And why is specifically learning validated? Why are HR systems not validated, right? That's a very common question that I've seen, right?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, it is pretty important that learning is validated because the folks who are actually working on the ground. Let's take as an example R&D, someone who needs to have an access to perform their R&D. So how do they perform their particular activities? There are SOPs, there are trainings that they need to take to ensure that they perform the particular activities in a particular way in case of a deviation, or in case of something happens, how do they handle that situation? There are trainings to do that, right? So
Yes.
even before an R&D person gets into a lab, they need to perform certain trainings. They need to take certain trainings, and they need to be compliant with some curricula, as an example, before they can get access to certain
Can you help us
material
from
or
it?
some
Yeah,
access. Yeah.
I got it. I got it. Somewhere, can you just help us through your, why is this validation needed through your presentation that you made a plan to present to us? Can you just take us through?
Yep. So one of the things that we have mentioned is what data needs to be validated, right? So we have all there is always a question of, hey, what needs to be validated? Do we need to validate everything? Do we need to validate, as an example, banner? No. What we generally need to validate, what is an authority looking at, right? As part of 21 CFR Part 11, what are they looking to that a validation is performed? I- is there data integrity, right? So is the data as accurate as it needs to be? As an example, learning history, is the learning history up to date, accurate, right? Are the users compliant on their trainings? Are there e-signatures? Are the security, are the users having, administrators having more access than they should not be having, right? And traceability, when was a training assigned, when was a training taken, when was a training launched? So FDA or any authorities who perform these audits, they need to be able to have these kind of details when an audit happens, right? Just as a good example is what I would say, right? There was an instance where someone performed a wrong action in an organization, right? And then the auditor said that, hey, when this happened, you did not perform this. Why did you not do this? And what
It's
happened
more of
was
a
that the
it's more
user
of a
had not completed
discovery.
training. Yeah. And the user had not completed the training. And how did the user perform a particular action without completing the trainings? Then that is a deviation for the organization. So that is how the authorities validate that someone who is supposed to perform a particular action, are they enough, are they qualified to perform certain actions? That is where the validation comes into picture, to ensure that the systems are validated, up to date, and if the users are also trained before they perform certain actions.
So who needs this validation, Raj, in case if they have to really look for a validation? Is that like everyone may have some LMS systems or third-party systems, and a lot of market driven systems, which talks about a lot of analytics, dashboards, and everything in place. Although we feel that we are compliant about it, and employees are compliant about their courses or the mandates and all those things, but in a back-end aspect of this particular features or the releases or anything, how do you or who has to be compliant? Maybe I think you can just take us there.
Yeah, I think most of the times it's the pharma organizations that pharma life science organizations that need validation. It's the regulated industries, as you can see here. It's the life sciences, pharmaceuticals, biotech industries. Those are the ones that need mostly the validation systems. There could be a lot of compliant organizations, like even an airlines industry. They're pretty regulated industry, but they do not need a validated instance as such. They may have more compliance requirements that can be maintained through different ways within a curricula or system setup. But from a validation perspective, it is generally the life sciences industries, biotech, and medical industries that are the ones that need the validated systems. It's not every compliance system or every complex system that does not need a validated system. It's generally the life sciences, pharmas, and biotech industries. Those are the ones that need a validated learning management system.
So maybe on a little fun note of it, it's that like we talk about these pharma and all are very sensitive and all. There could be some of those so sensitive organizations across, right? It could be, maybe into nuclear aspect of it, or some chemical reactions or big organizations which may have to be compliant. So does this also fall into that validation part also? Do they really have this kind of LMS and all? Just out of the box, I just got it like when you're saying these companies have to be
Yeah,
or these industries have to be. Yeah.
that's a good question. Not There could be heavily regulated industries, there could be heavily regulated organizations, but not all organizations need a validation to be performed on their learning management system, right? As an example, I was working for one of the organizations, Westinghouse. It's a nuclear company, nuclear organizations. They were a very regulated industry. They had very strict compliance in terms of learning, as to someone's access would be removed if they did not complete a particular training. learning, but they did not need a validated instance. They had a very regulated trainings, very controlled trainings, but they did not need a validated training. Validated training is very specifically focused on life sciences pharmas, because there are agencies that come and audit those organizations to ensure that the systems are being validated, or they validate the systems to ensure that they are performing as they need to perform, right? So that is where the validation comes into picture. The validation is
How does
generally
one qualify for
audits.
this? Is that like there is any qualification or any criteria for say that hey, your LMS is validated, and what is bare minimum? Because organizations keep doing it, this evolving, and they keep getting the releases or the patch updates, or maybe as they are compliant already and they have to be compliant, and it takes a lot of effort over there. What is bare minimum compliance we talking about, or how they can really be with a minimal effort of it? Maybe from that perspective, can you help us and give us more idea there?
Yeah, so obviously, as I mentioned, pharma organization life sciences, they need to be validated. The bare minimum validation that needs to happen. I wouldn't say there's nothing like a bare minimum. As I said,
I
there's
mean,
a
these are like
different.
qualifications, various qualifications we talk, right? So from that
Yeah. So
perspective.
the different qualifications that we talk about are IQ, installation qualification, operational qualification, and performance qualification here, right? What do this each mean? And everyone was spot on, right? A couple of folks were able to quickly identify each of them, right? Installation qualification is to ensure that the system is deployed, especially when it comes to SaaS applications like LMS. Installation qualification means that is the system installed as it needs to be, in the sense that is it on the right servers, or are the servers validated so that no one has access to those servers, or they're protected, or they have the right amount of security, right? So installation qualification is generally handled by SaaS vendor. What it means is that in our case, if you're talking about success factors, installation qualification is delivered by success factors. What it means is that success factor says, hey, we have deployed the latest version of the annual release as per the validation requirements. So we have done our testings, it's installed properly, it's available 99.9% of the times, there are security checks and all that, right? So installation qualification is specifically owned by the SaaS vendor. Then we have operational qualification and performance qualification, right? These are generally the responsibilities of the organizations that are implementing a particular LMS solution. It could be Cornerstone, it could be Success Factors, or any valid environment, right? Basically, operational qualification, performance qualification, they validate that the system is performing as it needs to perform based on that organization requirements. OQ and PQ can differ for different organizations. A set of OQ requirements for one organization may not 100% mimic the set of OQ requirements for different organizations. Some organizations may want to upload job descriptions, as an example. The other organizations may not want to upload job descriptions. So their set of OQs may be different from the set of OQ qualification tests the other organization needs to perform. So basically, with a combination of IQ, OQ, and PQ, what we do is we ensure that the installation of the system is validated, the processes are validated, the data is validated, and the system functionality is validated. So what it means is that the system is functioning as it needs to function, the system is available because it's installed properly as it needs to be installed, and the users are able to train as and when they need to train, right? So the combination of IQ, OQ, and PQ qualification ensures that the system is compliant and it is performing as it needs to perform to enable users to be able to take training and be qualified to perform their activities.
Great, great, Raj. But I just have one question here on this particular information. It's brilliant, and I'm sure the audience can actually ask the questions in the Q&A. Meanwhile, I just have one or two questions here. But if you're compliant, you can say yes in the chat box also. I think that will be a great understanding for us in the chat box. Or if you want any deep down into IQ or PQ or anything like that, please do let us know where you find the most challenging scenario for you or for your organization. Uh, Yes, thank you for that. Thanks for the response. So, Raj, I just want to say, where do you, maybe, I think, as we organizations, we following it as what we believe in, is what I always said. But at the same time, where do we fail, or which part of the auditors can find us, our major challenges, or the organizations fail to comply with, or they overlook on these areas of it? Which are those that particular areas? Can you just pinpoint? Is that a DQ, IQ, or is a combination? I know that its combination is very important, no doubt about it. But there could be some yardstick where, okay, in this area, most of the folks, most of the companies do fail. So that area can just
I
throw
would
some
say
light.
the most point of failure could be OQ or PQ. IQ is, as I mentioned, is done by SuccessFactors, so they do go through the rigorous process of ensuring they do the installation qualification and they provide that installation qualification certificates to the clients, right? OQ and PQ are where there is a scope for organizations not to be compliant, right? So it could be an organization may want to deploy a custom report and they fail to actually qualify that custom report, as an example, right? That falls under operational qualification, because a custom report that an auditor needs to run and be able to review the data from that report, that falls under operational qualification. And this is a real-time example that I have a real-time example that I faced with one of my customers, where they thought, hey, the system is validated, I don't need to validate what custom reports that I use. But those reports were actually being given to the auditors, and the data in one of those reports had wrong information, where the date was off because of some technical challenges. But what it meant was the auditor saw a wrong date. What it meant was someone who was supposed to be qualified on a certain date, it did not show the right dates, and it meant that someone had access to a particular research center without being qualified, right? Then the company was able to go back into the LMS and show that, hey, this user was really qualified. But what came out of that was a big thing. So it was a major deviation for the organization. The organization submitted a deviations report, and that report was not validated as part of a regular operational qualification process. And then the auditors found an issue in the output of that report. So we had to open up a deviation, go through the process, prove to the auditors that why that custom report was, or that particular report was wrong. We had to go through quite a bit of process to correct ourselves. So one of the major points of failure could be an operational qualification, especially when an auditors come and try to audit the system.
Thanks, Raj. And I think that's a real-time case that you mentioned. But we have one of the most enthusiastic audience here who have answered all my questions when I kept it in the chat box. So again, thanks a lot. It's really great to have you in this webinar because it makes more interactive. The question here is identification of what needs to be validated during upgrades can be often be confusing. So can you help with this particular query to be answered? Can be often be confusing while going for
Yeah,
upgrades.
absolutely. And I think that is one of the things that I did plan to speak about here, right? So as part of our annual
Okay.
releases, we have a cycle where the production gets updated at a certain time around October end or November first week, depending on it differs from year to year. But your staging environments get updated to the latest version a couple of weeks before, or a month or 2 months before the actual annual release. So one of the things that I have seen been very effective is actually preparing a base OQ and PQ test scripts, right? So it could be, the number is something that you may want to come up with. Do I need to have base regression test scripts of 20 test scripts that I want to test every year? It could be as simple as creating a course, creating a curricula, creating a period-based curricula, or creating an event-based curricula, or an assignment profile, right? So what I've seen, the best way to ensure you have very good validation process at the same time you are compliant is actually coming up with an agreed amount of base set of IQ tests, OQ or PQ tests, and then ensuring that any new features that's come up and which you want to enable, it could be a universal universal deployment, universal push, or something that an organization wants to implement. We need to validate whether the universal push that is going to happen, is it going to impact any of our processes, right, or not? So that is where a validation needs to come into picture. And the same thing with that, if I want to enable any custom feature, like let's say I want to enable what we call banner, right? Does it impact my validation state? No, the validation state of the system does not get impacted when you, just as an example, because LMS has deployed a banner, right? So yeah, LMS has deployed a new interface, new UI, yes, it needs to be validated. But LMS learning has deployed a banner that is maybe some fancy banner. Do we need to validate that? No, because it is not going to impact how the user interacts with the system, how the user launches the training. So it's a very fine line where first having a base set of test cases that you want to regression test, and with every release identifying if any of the releases universal changes, if they are going to impact your validated state one, and if there are any opt-in opt-out options, whether they are going to impact your validated state of the system or not, right? So coming up with that kind of a set of test cases that you want to use on an annual basis can go a long way. I generally have tried to maintain not more than like four or few new test cases that we want to add, and there may be test cases that I may add as part of the regular base set of test cases scripts that we want to test. But keeping a base test case and adding the new features and the open output features, that will ensure that we are covering all our bases and we are compliant. Obviously we need to open
That's
a
a
change
success
control.
factor.
Yeah.
I got it.
Yeah.
I got it. Maybe this success factors as a suite can help me somewhere. Does it have any
Oh yeah.
pre-configured or anything like that which can help me out quickly to really
Yeah.
validate and do my some kind of understanding? Okay, I'm deviating or I'm not deviating, or I
Oh
can
yeah.
actually identify my upgrades and I can just do it off.
So that is where success factor scores over some of the other systems, like systems, right? As an example, Workday is not a validated LMS, right?
Oh,
And the
okay.
reason I say is, yeah, the reason I say that is success factors, when it says it's validated, it just doesn't give an IQ and wash off its hands, right? And it actually gives a set of test cases, OQ and PQ test cases that an organization can use. And if properly used, those can contribute to 80% of your test cases, right? And they segregate those OQ and PQ test cases by functionality, like administration, like end user interface, security, login, and all that. There are like 8 different kind of buckets that SuccessFactors has, that they use to be able to that the users can pick and choose. Hey, these are the test cases that apply to me, so I want to use these test cases, and they're very well written, and they keep upgrading that. What it means is that if there is new functionality, SuccessFactors provides test cases for those new functionality, and we can choose to use them. We can take them and modify them as we want it to be. But SuccessFactors provides test cases for all the system functionality that it thinks needs to be validated. Not all organizations will take everything and use it, but you can pick and choose what you want. Same applies for annual release. As part of annual release, any new functionality that impacts validated state, SuccessFactors releases its OQ, PQ test cases that the users can use if they want to implement any of those functionalities. So SuccessFactors in that way helps a lot. Helps the customers quite a bit in terms of helping their system stay validated, and it goes all the support goes all the way. And one of the things
Can
that I
you
do
give
want
us
to
some
highlight.
idea and land us on to the life sciences part of validation? Because I understand Success Factors is giving, and the toolkit is also very interesting to see. And if it is validating, and what is that in the life sciences part of the story? Can you give us
Yeah.
more insights there? Yeah.
Yeah, so that's a good question, right? So if you remember towards the starting of the discussion, I said that some organizations think validation is one and done. Some organizations take it to an extreme, right? So validation starts all the way from when you initiate the projects, all the way from starting with your user requirement documents, right? All the way from you having a user requirement documents, they been converted to functional requirements, then your technical requirements, then your test scripts, and then your sign offs and everything, right? Validation, the testing is nothing but your validation, right? So the validation starts all the way from when you want to deploy an LMS. So and some of the misconception I have seen when an LMS is being deployed, they think that I just need to validate the system. No, you actually need to validate the integrations, because the data is coming from an upstream system. It could be Employee Central, or it could be Workday, or any other upstream system. The migration needs to be validated as well. One of the things, common mistakes that I've seen is organizations not validating their migration aspect of the implementation. That's a very big thing. Most of the organizations, they think that, hey, it's just data that I'm pushing in, but migration also needs to be validated along with integrations, along with the system functionality, along with the data, right? So that is where the migration starts, all the way from implementing the system and then actually maintaining that validation process all around the year, right? Validation is not I implement it at the point of deployment and I do my validation once a year. No, as you move along as you move along business as usual, whenever you are making any changes to the system, whenever you're deploying new functionality, whenever you're deploying new report, everything needs to be validated, right? Again, how much do you validate? Ensuring that you're compliant and you don't overdo that, that is a very good strategy that we need to think about. But validation is an ongoing process that life sciences organizations have to
Just
maintain.
help us. What is actually validation? A lot validation is I'm hearing. I'm just coming from a domain background of HR, so just give me an understanding of what actually, maybe in your next, somewhere it's there somewhere. Actually, what is validating exactly means?
Yeah. So basically what we are validating is a couple of things, right? Whether the users have the right assignments. Basically, as you see there, hey, do the users have the right training, and are the right training assigned to the right learners? If someone is supposed to have a training and they do not have the training, that is validated. Has the user completed? Is the user compliant on their curricula? That is validated. Has the user's
Okay.
completions records? That is validated. So e-signature is a very uh, is a topic that a lot of organizations have trouble with whether to use a e-signature or not. But as
Yes.
per
Yes.
as per the FDA regulation, e-signature is still a valid requirement. Even though a user does a single sign-on, e-signature is another layer of validation to confirm that, hey, it is this particular user who is actually taken the training, right? So that is a very important part of validation. That is the reason why every most of the life sciences organizations who implement LMS success factors, they also enable e-signature on not all courses but GXP courses. Obviously security does, do the people have the right amount of security? Most important thing is audit trail, right? We have seen organizations where they say that, hey, was the training assigned on the right time to this right user or not? Did this user have the right amount of time to train on the new version of this SOP or not, right? So audit trail is very important as to when a new version of a course is created, or when a new version of a course is assigned to a user and they have enough time to complete the course, right? Reporting is a very important thing as well. Integrations, as I just mentioned, a lot of organizations think integration is not something that needs to be validated, but that is not true. Integration is also a very important aspect of it, because that feeds into your LMS and that drives quite a bit of your LMS process. It could be assignment profile, it could be reporting or anything. So these are the different types of validations that need to be performed in an organization.
That's great, Raj. Maybe I think I've seen in the previous slide or somewhere it's the instances part of the story. So somewhere I read it that people are moving from the 3 instances to 4 instances or something like that. Uh,
Yeah, yeah,
Also,
yeah.
I've
I
seen
think
some of my audiences actually got validation. Thank you so much. It helps the other audience also. Thanks. These questions are made much more comfortable for everyone's understanding. So I'm trying to ask here, but any questions you want to ask audience, I request you to put it in the chat box. That will really help, because some of the key pointers at times, if we validate and understand it to the depth of it, there's a lot of information that can auditors are expecting in this kind of validation. So maybe I think yeah, just coming back here, the instances part we are talking about. So three instances were there, and now why people are moving to 4 instances, or the companies are moving to the 4 instances. Raj,
yeah, sorry.
Raj,
So
can you hear us?
yes, can you hear me? Sorry, I'm trying to speak.
Yeah, yeah, go ahead, go ahead. Yeah.
Hello. Yeah. So for validated LMS, success factors gives four instances, right? One is dev, staging, pre-prod, and prod, right? So while dev and staging, by the nature of itself, we pretty much know what a dev and staging means. Staging is generally the place where the actual OQ and PQ takes place. Most of it, as an example, like let's say this year, SuccessFactors annual release is happening on October 22nd. The staging instance is going to be updated to 2605 as of let's say September or something like that, right? And then staging is where the customers perform the validation. They have a 6 week window, sometimes four, depends on how success factors does it. The patch on which the production is going to get updated, that is where the validation needs to take place. You cannot just start validating on a patch that is much lower than what the production is going to be. So we need to wait for the right time. When the right patch is applied, that is when the validation starts in the staging instance. We go through the change control process, we do the validation, we update FRS or URS as needed. We go to the QA team, we get all the approvals done, and then the system is ready, the production system is ready to get upgraded. What happens while this validation process is happening, if there are any changes that need to happen to the production instance, right? So that is where a pre-prod instance can come into picture, where a pre-prod can help you business as usual while the validation process is happening. So any changes that need to happen or something, as part of business as usual, not as part of an upgrade. When the systems are not in sync, when production instances are and staging instances are not in sync, right? So that is when we need to use the pre-prod to ensure that any changes that we need to do to fix anything in the production, they are done in the pre-prod instance. So that is the importance and significance of pre-prod instance, not just not just during the implementation of the project, as well as during the life cycle of the project, life cycle of the learning management
So
system.
you know, it's like something like I do not want to start with zero again and again the validations or these things on an instance of it. What do you think? What how I can look at annual validations or the releases? How do I really look at it? Maybe you can just let us go through any insightful information.
Yeah, so as I always say, having a base set of test scripts, that will go a long way to ensure that users don't start from zero. They don't, obviously having those change controls and everything in place way ahead of time, not waiting for the last minute. It ensures that things happen on time. Having the QA team, all the teams aligned, working with the business or the testing team to ensure that they are available for performing the validations. Having those different teams aligned, and as well as having a project plan, that ensures that not just is the validation process accurate, it also ensures that it happens in a timely manner.
Great. Maybe I think some annual releases, more insights if you can
Yeah,
give us.
I think my screen is got stuck up. Sorry, guys. I didn't mean to share the screen. Sorry
Yeah,
if
we
it
can
got
see
stuck.
annual releases is what just now
Yeah,
I got
yeah,
it.
yeah, 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 yeah. Yep. So as it rightly says here, right? So SAP releases, we do an impact assessment. What do we mean by impact assessment? We do an impact assessment as to what is the impact of this release on not just the system but on the validation status. Do these items need to be validated or not? And what is the regression use test case, right? And we assess the new capabilities, new features along with our business and say these are the ones that we want to enable or not. And then we perform the validation and we do the validation evidence. We have a sign off from the QA team, and that is when the production system is ready to be upgraded to to the latest release, as well as any new features need to be can be enabled in the production.
Does it stop with validation, after the go live, or does it have, much more to do with it?
Yeah, that's a good question. Again, as I mentioned, validation is something that life sciences organizations should not be doing just once in a year. It's an ongoing process. Any new capabilities that an organization wants to enable, or if there are any new custom reports that an organization wants to enable, right? So that is where the validation is an ongoing process. And it's not a one and done kind of a thing. We need to ensure that the system is always in a validated state. So that is it's very important to understand that it is not a one time activity. Having the app change controls as needed for different functionalities, different projects that can come up, or everything needs to be validated, right? Even like enabling a different language can impact a little bit of validated state. Doesn't mean that you need to validate everything. You may need to validate some aspects of the system. So on every ongoing project and anything that impacts the LMS, we need to ensure that it is validated, and the validation process is not something that happens just once in a year.
That's great. That's great. Maybe I think the last few, I think, uh, for the audience benefit, and the next 5 minutes, we're going to open it for the Q&A. So just give us the last
You were
few
cutting it, sorry.
insights onto the
Yeah,
change control. Anything that we have
yeah,
to be really
yeah,
focused upon on the foundations of it, or
yeah,
how
yeah. So
the
Hans,
one
yeah,
LMS,
yeah. I think I don't know how many of you who use validated LMS, you have a change control every year, right? So, but I've seen that having a change control, we take a base change control from the last year, we take a copy of that and add more. Using a change control is a very good way to ensure that your upgrade process is validated, right? So change control is a mechanism that have used and the organizations to ensure that the validation process happens properly. Every aspect of the validation is taken care of, right? And having those base test cases, having to ensure that everything that needs to be tested is tested, is a very good way to ensure that the system stays validated. Ensuring that there are no deviations. One of the things that I've seen is having, as part of change control, more and more deviations can come up if the testing is not performed properly, right? So minimizing the number of deviations can go a long way to ensure that the change control and the validation happens in time. So one of the things that I do want to mention here, right? SAP e-signature was a very painful thing for the organizations. Why do I say that, right? So a lot of organizations do not want to implement e-signature just because it's an additional level or additional layer of the user has to enter the credentials again, and that credentials could be completely different from their Okta ID or their IDM ID or anything like that, right? So the lot of times organizations face the challenge that the users have to open a ticket every time they forget a e-signature. There are organizations that have implemented e-signature to integrate with Okta, but that has not been effective because Okta has upgraded and SAP has not upgraded its APIs. So there were some discrepancies there. So what SAP has done now is it has given the option for the end users to trigger their own e-signature change, right? So that's a very good option that some organizations have enabled, wherein instead of having the user to open a ticket every time they forget an e-signature, they can reset their own e-signature. So SuccessFactors is in investing quite a bit to ensure that the validated system is not only compliant, but the user experience is also great. So it's trying to improve its validated state there, or improve its the validated version of its LMS.
Raz, one question from audience poll. Let me read the question.
That's very insightful, Ram.
Yes. So, how often do you perform LMS validation and regression testing? Question
So
from
generally,
audience.
yeah. So the entire end-to-end validation, generally, when I say end-to-end validation, it's done annually, right? So unlike SuccessFactors other releases, a validated LMS, SuccessFactors only releases the upgrades once a year, not twice a year like other SuccessFactors modules and other SuccessFactors LMS organizations. So in regression testing and an yearly validation, there is an yearly validation that needs to happen, so that the whatever are the new releases or whatever are the new patches that get applied as part of the yearly release, they are validated and the regression testing is done. So that validation happens once in a year, but as part of the life cycle of the learning, the validation can keep on happening. If you have new projects, if you have new enhancements, if you have new reports, the validation needs to keep happening on an ongoing basis. But a annual validation happens obviously once a year, and that is mandatory because SuccessFactors is upgrading their system once a year, LMS system once a year, and customers need to ensure that their system is compliant and up to speed on validation. That is when they need to perform the regression testing and the testing of the new features.
Yeah, another follow-up question from the audience is how confident are you that your LMS is audit ready today?
Whose LMS?
No, how confident? I mean, this is the follow-up question for the above question.
Yeah.
So, how confident that LMS audit ready today? So,
So if you are
organizations.
asking how to ensure we are confident, so the way to
Yes.
ensure, yeah, the way to ensure that your system is audit ready is, what we do is, some of the organizations do periodic reviews. Okay, so what does a periodic review mean? They have an internal organizations that do, and they simulate what external audit does, right? So they say, hey, do I have, is my system validation up to speed, or is my do I have the right security, do I have the right administrators who need the right amount of security, right? So Some of the organizations do internal audits too to ensure that their LMS is audit ready. They are called periodic reviews. Some organizations do it once a year, some organizations do it once in 2 years. What it does is it ensures that there are internal audits in place that literally simulate what an external auditor would ask for or what an external audit would look for, and then they are more confident in their audit process. That is a very good way for organizations, larger organizations, maybe not smaller organizations, but larger organizations, to ensure that they have these periodic reviews that are done internally, which perform the same kind of audits that are done by the FD, auditors, and be ensure that your LMS is audit ready. Periodic review is a very good way to do that. I don't know. There's a question to the participants: do your organizations perform periodic review where you audit internally your learning management systems? Not
We can
many.
follow with them. Yeah, we can follow
Yeah.
with them and ask more questions. Yeah.
Yep.
Yes, Raj, I think,
We can go to the next
do
slide.
you have
Correct.
anything
Yeah.
else to express from your, or we can go for Q&A?
Yeah, I think the only thing that I do want to highlight is the fact that, just because some organizations implement validated learning in one system and corporate learning in a different system, right? So the reason for that is they think that a regulated system does not offer the amount of flexibility that a corporate learning wants to do, right? So I think that is a huge misconception where organizations think that, hey, this is a regulated system, then it means that anything that I want to put on this one, it's going to take me a couple of weeks, months, and I don't want a regulated system for my corporate training. Let me buy a different instance of SuccessFactors or a different system, right? So one thing that I do want to highlight is by ensuring that we have the right amount of validation, the right amount of testing done, and having the processes in place, having the test cases in place, that reduces the amount of time that a validation needs to take place. And also ensuring that we don't validate each and everything that needs to be done. A corporate training, having a different domain for corporate training, and ensuring that the corporate training has a different sets of checks and balances ensures that it does not impact the validated state of the system. We only need to validate what impacts the validated state, right? So we should not be testing the corporate training or training that doesn't impact the validated state of the system. Similar way as we would regression test a GXP regulated industry or GXP regulated system. So it's a very fine balance that we need to take to ensure that corporate team gets the value that they want out of the system. At the same time, the system is validated. So that is where there's always a pull and push kind of a thing, but having this exact amount of right understanding of why we need validation, how much validation we need, and who is responsible for what, that ensures that the system is utilized properly between different departments or between GXP and non-GXP systems or GXP non-GXP departments.
Hey, that's great, Raj. But yeah, thanks a lot for a lot insightful thing. Maybe I request the audience, we give the space of the Q&A for 5 minutes here, and then we can conclude this session. Before you leave, Yash Technologies is one of the global, company in terms of technology integration and aggregator of it. We are there more than 44 development centers across the continents. We are there in US, UK, Middle East, and India, and everywhere. So we can be, able to do a health assessment for your LMS validation check part of it, and we have the experts and Raj and team, and also can come and actually do the validations for you. So we can take up some of those things for you too, which can actually make your business smooth enough, and you can focus on your critical business function rather than looking at the agility in the market and industry and being compliant with these regulations. You can be much more compliant with the help of partnering in terms of whatever the requirements on LMS front of it. Yes, definitely, this is one of the most insightful, Raj. Thank you so much. Any closing remark? Okay, I think maybe we talked a lot on this, but on the closing remark, one takeaway that every audience can take away from this session, from your end and also from the audience, I would recommend you can just put what is your takeaway in the chat box. That will be a great gratitude for what are the discussion we had for the last last 45 minutes. So I would recommend you to just type what is that one point or the one key takeaway that you're taking it up. So Raj, one closure line from you. What is the biggest takeaway that you want to give it for our audience who have joined us today?
I think having the right balance between a validation process ensures that your system is compliant as well as delivering the LMS to the maximum of its abilities. So that is what I would suggest. Be compliant at the same time. Ensure that the system delivers the maximum that it should deliver to the organization. That is what my suggestion to organizations is. Don't make it too rigid, not too flexible. Be compliant, deliver value to the business.
Oh, that's great. I think that the fine balance is what we are looking for, and I think organizations can make it a kind of a smooth journey in that. Thank you so much, Raj, and all the audience.
Thank you.
I think more or less we have addressed all the questions. I hope we have not missed anybody. But in case it's like your LMS is to be validated, or we can do a health assessment for you. So please do let us know from by responding to the mail, or you already have our email IDs, or my team will reach you after this particular webinars. So whenever you want it, we can just put an appointment with an expert, and we can actually do this validation for you, as well as we can actually partner to take it forward, so that you don't have to really think about what to be done. Thank you so much. I think validation of learning in the LMS part of it, yes. So this is one of the thing. Is it a query? If you can just unmute and you can speak up if there is a possibility. Suresh, there is an audience being over there. Validation of learning in the LMS is what is the ask.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
The certificate will be provided, and how? Hamid, for this particular validation of webinar you're talking about, or is it a certification of the validation of your LMS? Raj, would you like to pick it up this one?
Yeah, I think there could be different certificates, and I hope you are doing fine. So the certificate of completion, obviously, you get the certificate of completion as soon as you complete a course, not this course, course in LMS learning. That is one thing. Second thing is you
Yes.
get your IQ reports in staging as well as in production. We upload them to whatever is a validation tool like Viva or something like that. Um, Okay, for certification of webinar. Okay,
Okay,
so
this is on
I'll
the webinar. All right. At this point of time, we are just creating the awareness on this, so we have not planned for a certificate, but definitely, we'll come back on certain courses that can be helpful for you. But yeah, that can be a different segment, because this is about more to get some of our organizations, compliant with the validated LMS part of it. So this is not a complete full-fledged, because that requires a lot of detailing and a lot of things to do at an assessment level to bring a certification for you, because webinar is more of an awareness. So, but yeah, Hamid, thanks a lot for your interest. You've been very active participant. We shall plan some certifications on this also. Yeah, thank you for letting
in
us
order
know.
to your question of how validation of learning in the LMS, if you're actually talking about the content itself being validated, right? If that is your question, generally content itself is not valid. As an example, if you can have an SOP, right? You actually don't validate whether that SOP is correct or not. The SOP itself could go through the life cycle, right? What does it mean? As an example, you could have Viva as a document management system, right? And that Viva document management system could have different phases of that document. It could be in draft phase, it could be in review phase, it could be in approved phase, it could be ready for training phase. So the actual document itself could have a different life cycle, and that is handled in the document management system. It could be Viva or any other document management system. So after the document comes to learning, that is when the learning management system takes over and validates that the learning is available as per the actual content, whether it's Viva or any other document management system. That is responsible to ensure that the document is accurate and it's been reviewed, it's been approved, etc. And the entire life cycle of the documents are generally maintained in a different document management system.
Yeah, thanks for answering that, Raj. And I request all the members, thanks a lot for participating. you can leave us a message in the chat box here, or else you can actually reach us out. We'll be sharing, or we'll be connecting with you for our thanking mails, so that you can respond to us that you want a kind of an health assessment or any kind of support from us from LMS validation front. We are ready to help you out, because Yesh is already there in the market for the last 30 years, and being one of the best places to work for, and being the topmost company in the technology, and partnering with SAP as a gold partner, we can bring a lot of solutioning to you, and we can bring a lot of best practices that has been followed, which can be a easy toolkit that you can actually follow it to ensure your system is validated and it can be taken care. So with that said, I thank Raj for giving us the complete detailing and overview. Hope you liked our session, and I'm sure we come back with many more such topics in the future. Thanks, Raj, once again for your
Thank you,
valuable
team.
time.
Thanks everyone for participating.
It was very insightful. Thank you so much. And thanks to also our coordinator and the co-host, our Suresh, who's there here. And thanks, Suresh, and all the team who have been supporting here. So with that said, we conclude this webinar for today. And I wish you all the great day. And please do reach us for any support, and we are here for it. And thanks a lot.